You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, so as you know, Washington State legalized marijuana with passage of I-502, and we can quibble about legalized and just how legal it is, but the possession of an ounce of marijuana is perfectly legal, and as soon as they get the rules in place for the selling and cultivation for retail distribution, we'll have pot shops just north of us in Vancouver, Washington, where anyone 21 and older could go in and buy marijuana. But there is a certain question that has to be solved here in the retail distribution of marijuana on a legitimate legal level, and that is labeling. Got to have some sort of label on these products, tell people what they are, what they contain. And of course, you want to have rules and regulations where there's testing of how much THC and CBD and all of that. And we can put that on the label, and whether it was grown organically and what kind of pesticides might have been used on it. What strain is it? What's its relative terpenes and all of that stuff. There's plenty we could put on the label, but I think we would all agree at some point you would have to clearly designate in a very simple manner that the product is marijuana. I think we could all come to that conclusion, right? I mean, labels are good with THC and CBD, but aside from those of us here in the choir, who the hell knows what that is? Some people know what THC is, but that's not going to be something that a 5-year-old picking up a wrapper with a brownie on it might be able to recognize. It's not going to be something that an older person might be able to discern, maybe able to read in the fine print without their glasses. You know, maybe if we had something big and bold to show people very clearly that it was marijuana. Hey, well, look at that. Look at that there, right on the screen. That would be something I would think of, right? It's a silhouette of the state of Washington, and in the center of the state is a white circle, and in the center of the white circle is a green cannabis leaf, maybe an indica leaf there, kind of thick on the leaves there, and not the best drawing of a cannabis leaf. That would be my only quibble with this, but that seems pretty straightforward. This product, if I saw that, on a case of brownies or some cookies or, whatever it might be, and I saw that, oh, medicated. That's medicated. Obviously, there's some pot in there. Well, guess what, folks? They rejected it. They rejected this logo because it looks like pot. I'm not making it up. They rejected it because it looks like pot. This is the story as it was written up in Huffington Post. Last week, regulators in the state scrapped the logo, which would have appeared on packaging for all recreational cannabis products, in response to pressure from critics who said the design glamorized marijuana culture. Look at that thing. Glamorizing marijuana culture with its blatant, badly clip art pot leaf on it. Looked like something a 12-year-old could have done in MS Paint. Yes. Oh my gosh, the glamorization. Now, Mikhail Carpenter is a spokesman for the Liquor Control Board because, of course, in Washington, the Liquor Control Board runs marijuana. Mikhail Carpenter, spokesman for the Liquor Control Board, told Huffington Post, quote, "The intention behind it, of course, was to readily identify marijuana products." Oh, yes, of course. "When you're dealing with extracts or brownies, you need to make sure you identify them as containing cannabis." End quote. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, guess who? A nonprofit called the Children's Alliance. Won't you think of the children? Children might see this pot leaf. Look at this. Look at it. Look at it with its whole leafy green pot leafiness. The Children's Alliance sent regulators a letter last month complaining the insignia could, quote, "reasonably be viewed as branding Washington the marijuana state, or as Washington proudly promoting marijuana use to the rest of the world," end quote. Oh God, it's almost as if 55% of the voters thought marijuana use was something that wasn't a crime. Wow. A local business journal wrote that the logo looks like a decal fit for a Cheech and Chong van. While Mark Kleiman, the UCLA professor who is advising the state on its rulemaking process, a.k.a. the pot czar, and I like to call him that because he doesn't like the name, told an Oregon public radio station that the image, quote, did seem to be closer to endorsement than is probably wise, end quote. All right, now, there's some argument about this, right? There was a guy, where's this guy? Holleran was his name, who's a graphic design guy, spoke to Huffington Post and said, yeah, the image is so, Potleaf is so countercultural, it's impossible to present it as a non-biased government symbol. That is, Potleaf is associated with hippies so strongly, you can't show it on a government logo without appearing to endorse the use of marijuana. And the analogy he makes here is that the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, doesn't put an image of a can of beer, an AK-47, and rolling papers on the licenses it grants. And I looked it up. I looked up, because you know me, I look shit up. I looked up the logo and all the branding for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and sure enough, on their shield, on their little logo and stuff, it's like a scale and like a rule of something. I mean, there's no bullets or anything on it, right? So I understand the point you're making on this, but I want to make a different point. First of all, one person mentioned how the Liquor Control Board spokesman said, we received criticism that it was a little too promotional, a little too flashy, and that it would be appearing in T-shirts, and that's why it was pulled. The board did not specify when or if a new logo would be ready, but said it reserved the right to produce another one. So the worry here is that we would put the Washington State pot logo on a T-shirt. And by the way, guess what's going to go on a T-shirt right now? Guess what I will see being sold at Seattle Hemp Fest, guaranteed, is that right there. Bet you dollars don't. It's going to be on T-shirts anyway. It doesn't matter what you make the logo for the Washington State or Colorado for that matter. Doesn't matter what you make the logo. It's going to get put on a T-shirt because you're a state that has legal pot and people think that's kind of cool and they're going to make T-shirts for it. So, but the other point that I have to get to on this is the fact that we have to censor nature. Think about what he said here in this. The ATF doesn't put a can of beer and AK-47 and rolling papers on the licenses it grants. Right. But can of beer is, something a man made. An AK-47, something a man made. Rolling papers, something a man made. Pot leaf, something nature made. Does that not indicate to you in a stark contrast just how insane the prohibition of marijuana is and how much of it is a hatred of nature itself? A hatred of our own connection to the plant and plants, there's others, that can heal us and maintain us in an era when we live with, genetically modified organisms, when they splice the gene of a bacteria into the gene of a corn, when they make Terminator seeds that only work for one cycle and then you got to go to them buying more. Yeah, there's something to that. There's something to this war against nature because nature tends to mess up some people's profits. My gosh, if we can have a plant we can grow in the backyard that when we smoke it, we get mellow instead of having to pop a Xanax or an Ambien to get to sleep, that hurts someone's profits. And that this ban here, it's telling to me that it's the marijuana leaf that's the problem here. Got a big problem with the marijuana leaf. And the same thing happened in the campaign, to be fair, same thing happened in the campaign for marijuana legalization, I-502. Amendment 64, you wouldn't have seen a pot leaf on either of them. Neither the side that believes in the leaf, nor the side that hates the leaf can stand the freaking leaf. And it's a leaf. It's just a leaf. It's not even really the part that most of us want. I know some people juice. I know that. But you know what I'm saying? It's not even really like, if they were censoring a picture of a big crystally bud in macro photography where you can see the THC trichromes, that would even be a little more logically consistent than banning the picture of the leaf. It's nature. It's a leaf. With any other drug, do we think of its natural state. Mushrooms. Okay, so mushrooms. That would be the one I could think of, that when you think of mushrooms, you think of a mushroom, and they do the little picture of a mushroom, and it's a big problem. Unless it's in Super Mario Brothers. Then you can have an Amanita muscaria mushroom as a major character. That's fine. Regardless, think of the other drugs. Think of cocaine. I'll bet none of you even know what a coca plant looks like. Yeah, Brian, I know you know. Opium poppy. Maybe some of you would get an opium poppy because we can actually have opium poppies and grow them in America. Did you know that? You can grow opium poppies for decorative purposes. Yeah, just as long as you're not scoring the side of them and letting the sap run out so that you can collect the opium to make heroin. It's perfectly okay in certain restricted ways. Think of the other drugs and then other drugs that don't even have a natural counterpart, like methamphetamine. There is no nature to censor in that. And ephedra plant, I guess, if you really want to go down the line, or wherever they get Drano from. But regardless, the censorship of the marijuana leaf, wow, it just goes to show you how potent the imagery is, how potent the symbolism and the framing is around the issue of cannabis in this country, that we can't even bear to acknowledge the leaf. We can't even use a picture of the product to show people what is in the product. Can you imagine if the automobile industry had to sell you cars but could never show you what a car looked like? I mean, it's just insane to me. And with all of their concern about, the kids might accidentally eat a brownie. Oh, no, somebody might get something that's too potent or whatever. With all that concern, don't you want to have the most effective, visible, easily recognizable logo possible to warn people of what's in it? This is just ludicrous to me. Now what are they going to do? Bend over backwards to come up with some other logo to indicate that there's marijuana in something, and then have to do a public service campaign to explain to people that that's the logo that means marijuana. Let's spend a little bit more of our money and raise the taxes on marijuana to cover it, I'm sure. And this goes back to all the way, when I was a kid, I remember watching MTV when it had music videos. By the way, kids, MTV used to be music on television. That's a remarkable thing. And we'd have videos where they'd have a rapper or somebody who was wearing a chain or had a hat on, and there'd be that little blur on the leaf. Now, I could see if they wanted to blur the mirror with the line on it and the straw sitting next to it. I could see if they wanted to blur the rig, the needle and the spoon and the whole strap. I could understand that. I could understand even if they wanted to blur a bong or a joint or the item that shows that this is a drug we're going to use. But banning the leaf is to say that nature needs to be censored. And I guess it's an accurate portrayal, considering that we've decided that nature is a controlled substance. Since we've decided that as a government policy, we must eradicate a plant species. Think about that. That's really our goal. That's really our rule here as a society, as other than what's grown at the University of Mississippi pot farm. The federal government, if it could succeed at doing so, would eradicate every pot plant on planet Earth. That's just insane, especially the more you know about this plant. So Washington State, we'll be keeping an eye on you, watching to see what you come up with for a pot logo. And again, I guarantee you, whatever it is, it's not going to be much better than that. And we're going to put it on a t-shirt anyway. In fact, we might put it on t-shirts and stickers right here at 420 Radio and sell them ourselves, because we're that way. Well, folks, that's all the time we have here in this hour, which is an hour later than it usually is. Thanks for sticking with us through the technical difficulties. But the result and the reward is we now have an audio stream. So you can check that out if you're on a 3G phone or dial-up PC. You can now listen live. Just listen, no video. Tomorrow's 7:10, Oil Day, Earl Day, Dab Day, whatever you want to call it. We're going to see if we can drag Ganja John into the studio and talk about Earl. That's all the time we got, folks. Thanks for joining us. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.